There are only two tragedies in life. One is not getting what you want. The other is getting it.
There are plenty of Dolphin fans that regret the loss of Brian Flores, and there's plenty of fans happy to see him go. There's plenty of fans that think Tua is a reason for a lot of the problems, and there's plenty of fans that think Tua is a reason for hope. Plenty of fans think Ross and Grier are in the right, and they were done wrong. And there's plenty of fans that think both kind of sabotaged everything. Reality is, though, we don't truly know. There's a lot of talk, a lot of evidence. And this is not to say we don't dig, because we need to come to the truth. Because if we don't learn the past, what really happened, then we can't really accurately predict the future. We're never going to get things 100%. But my job, and for those fans who really are interested, it's the process of the journalistic investigation. This is very similar to the scientific method. Trial and error, and there's certain things you follow, precepts you follow. You know, the scientific method is about coming to an understanding about science, nature, laws, scientific laws and all this other stuff. Journalism is about investigating and coming to the truth on a matter. So this is what the process is here. All these shows, the talking heads, the big guys, the little guys, the guys who just started like me, whatever the case may be, our job is to be journalists, to provide accurate information. Now, journalism and media are two different things. There's some people who just want to entertain or go in a different route. That's fine. Some people like that. I try to be a journalist here. That's not saying I am. When Brian Flores was fired, got a little crazy. But the process of me really adhering to being a journalist is key. So I got a comment that really sums everything up from JV. And again, this is why I love comments. I learned so much. And the quote was, and this is from Robert Frost, a famous American poet, "We dance round in a ring and suppose, but the secret sits in the middle and knows." And so this is what we're trying to do here. Come to our own conclusions based on evidence and fact. And in my last podcast, not the Bills one, the last Dolphins one, talked about TD Finn's talked about my departure, I think, from my framework of being a journalist and how to get back to that. Some people were totally cool with it as far as TD Finn's talk. Some people didn't understand it. I did a little talk, a comment, to respond, because that's my job. I'm here to serve you. You ask questions you want to know. So I'm going to put that at the back end of this podcast. You can check it out. If you saw it in the last Bills podcast, skip it. If you're not interested, whatever. But if you are interested, that's going to be there. It's the same take, because I don't like doing things that are personal twice, back to back. It's like I said in the last one, it's canned, So I did it in one take and put it in both spots. Anyway, this podcast is going to be part one of part two. Whether Brian Flores' departure is good for us or bad for us, whether Grier being in charge is good for us or bad for us, the reality is 2022 Dolphins, unless the world explodes, is going to be here. There's going to be a team. There's going to be a head coach. Ross is going to be in charge. Grier is going to be in charge. That's what it is. They're out looking for coaches. So my job now, in part this offseason, is to break down the past and deal with that. But it's also to look to the future. So the next two podcasts are going to be about the future, but I haven't forgot about the past. I have two big podcasts coming after these two. And it's going to be a journalistic take on a big article that's out there. I've seen it sit on Bleacher Report for 2 days in a row. And it was, I forgot the title of it, but it's basically, did Brian Flores sabotage Tua? So I'm going to break that article down And I'm going to use journalistic methods to inquire into the logic and the evidence and the presentation. Not to like say, look at this guy, I disagree with him, or I agree with them, the writer, or whatever the case may be. But this is a main concept. So I'm going to deal with that after this next podcast. And then the second part of that podcast is going to be taking the main framework, the main point, the foundation of that article, and then expanding on an entire podcast that's going to be full of evidence, full of video, full of quotes to really provide as much evidence that I can to support or deny the foundation of that article. But this podcast here is going to be why the Dolphins signing a defensive coordinator as new head coach is going to be problematic. In my opinion, it could be very problematic. Now, there's issues about the offensive coordinators and all of that, and I'm going to dig into that to the next one. So this is the defensive coordinators, looking them over and what they present, which one I see is the best. But overall, there's a sense of problem. There's a sense of this might not be the best way for the Dolphins to go, and it's going to be very specific and concrete. The next one will be the OCs. But the key element that we got to start off with is going to be Ross himself. And I'm going to add in one coach that's not going to be covered in either one of these because he's my favorite and he's not coming. And that would be Jim Harbaugh. Now, I personally think if he had come here and moved out Grier, brought his own staff, his own scouts, really started this thing truly from the ground up, that I think there would be a lot of hope. I think he's a good coach. He's the kind of coach we'd want. I think he could bring in staff, especially with Grier gone, and he could, he understands college and the pros. He would be perfect, but he is not coming. There's no way. And I'll go a little bit into that. But first, Ross is the head. Whoever we bring in, whatever we think about Grier, it all starts with Ross. And there's fundamental issues with Ross. And some of them are starting to get exposed. Now, what's coming out is not really getting hype, some of the Flores stuff. But consider this. 2 days before Brian Flores was going to get fired, or a day or something like that, someone broached a question to Ross and said, hey, what about Jim Harbaugh? He's like, oh, man, I'd be really intrigued with him. Well, this really reveals how awful an owner Stephen Ross is on multiple levels. And it's very specific. Now, one, you would say, hey, I said the very first day, I'm like, isn't that weird? Was he like Michigan more than his Dolphins? I mean, if Harbaugh's the right guy, then get him. He's like, oh, I wouldn't want to be the guy that takes him away from Michigan. So that's, but that's anecdotal. Who knows? He could just say that to try to play both fences. I'm not going to get too deep into that. But remember, Ross was caught by the media getting on his plane with Ireland while he still had a head coach in Sperano to go get Harbaugh. That was treacherous. The coaching fraternity was in an uproar over this. We did not see any real quality coaches come to Miami until Shane Gailey. And there was a reason for that because no one trusted him. But you could say, well, maybe Ross learned over that time. Maybe the coaches out there came to the point and said, well, he was a young owner, maybe screwed up, whatever. But here you go again. The same guy he stabbed Sperano in the back, he's flirting with before he fired. All you got to say is no comment. We got to see how it goes. He's still the coach of Michigan. But his mouth was moving and let that out and made him look like he still hasn't learned. Now, even a more critical fact is a couple days after this comment, or whatever it was, a day after this comment, he fires Flores. Why does he fire him? Because he had problems with the GM. He couldn't get along with people, and he wasn't a team player, and he was breaking chemistry. This is beyond ironic, and it really shows that Stephen Ross is obviously a smart man. He's a billionaire, but in some ways, he's an idiot. Jim Harbaugh was kicked out of the San Francisco organization after massive success because he couldn't get along with the GM. They had fights everywhere. And he was labeled a problem child who was too authoritarian and couldn't get along with people. This makes no sense. You're telling me you're firing Brian Flores for the very same thing that Jim Harbaugh was, and you're ready to hire him. So right here, some coaches are going to see this as flashing signs. I think fans need to see this as flashing signs. And what recently has come out in The Athletic said that Ross was trying to reach Watson, and Watson wouldn't take the call. So if this is true, what does this say about Ross as he sits on the podium and does his denial? I said in my prior Fins podcast, I was going to break down the rest of this conversation. I'll get to that. This shows that Stephen Ross, if this is true, is a total liar. And we would have to say, you know what? There's a real high chance he said, we'll trade for Watson if he can get some non-disclosure acts with these women. I mean, he completely lied on the podium if this is true, but this is not getting any hay. It's not getting any hay. We'll deal with that later. So this is a very important piece to the puzzle. But specifically, let's get into why a defensive coordinator would be problematic. Now, the three different defensive coordinators that we have looking at right now is Dan Quinn, Vance Joseph, and Leslie Frazier. I mean, on top of that, we have Dable, Moore, Peterson, and Caldwell as the offensive coordinators, but I will deal with that the last time. But it's funny, though, that some of the media came out and said Flores had a quick meeting with the Texans, as if to besmirch him and say, oh, he wasn't really worthy or something. Meanwhile, Dable and Frazier were having meetings with the Dolphins and also with the Bears on the same day. Shows you that there's a little disingenuous or really lack of logical thinking and journalistic approach by someone in the media, but whatever. Okay, so Leslie Frazier is known for the cover two. He's an extension of the Tampa two. His defense is like a bend but don't break defense, relies on a front four pressure, generating the majority of the pressure and dominating the line, with two quality linebackers who have to play lots of space, stop the run, and maybe a third. But then you got guys that can be really good at zone coverage. Okay? So then Dan Quinn, he does a 4-3 under, cover 3 zone, but he adds elements of 3-4 from Seattle and Dallas. And so there is an element, I think, that his flexibility kind of lends him a little bit better towards the roster that we have currently right now. But again, it depends on a 4-3 look and 4-3 pressure. Now, the 3-4 look was just elements of his defense. It wasn't the heart of it. And when we look at our roster, if he became the coach, it would have to be a very heavy component because our roster is more inclined to fit that 3-4 than the 4-3. Then we got Vance Joseph. He runs, his big thing is a 4-2-5. I mean, he runs all the things 4-3. You saw him, remember when he was here. Again, it's more of that bend but don't break, let the four guys rush. But what he really likes is that 4-2-5, and that demands high quality linebackers. This is why they drafted, in the last 2 years, they drafted 2 linebackers in the first 2 rounds. I can't remember the names, but one guy was, when 2 was drafted, he was drafted 7th or something. I can't remember the kid's name. And then they drafted another one this year, the big guy. Linebackers are critical for his system. Linebackers are also critical for Frazier's system with the Tampa 2. You need a linebacker who can stop the run but cover really well. So when you look over our roster and you see okay, if you're getting a defensive coordinator coming in, you naturally say, this is a good thing. Defense is our strength. Let's keep it our strength. Let's bring in a defensive coordinator who can maximize our strength, and then he can get a good offensive coordinator to build around, and they can put the talent into that instead of investing so much in the defense. But this will force a heavy philosophical change in all three of these. Some less than others, but still a heavy philosophical change. And when you look at our talent, you got to figure, I was saying in the offseason, Xavier Howard wanted to get traded out. He wanted a big contract. I said his knees were surgically repaired. I said this in I guess when he was fighting for the holdout in July or something like that. And I said, his talent is awesome, but long term, it gets riskier and riskier. And he had a good season this year, but not great. There was a certain point where he got nicked up, and you could see he lost some of his movement skills, and he got him back, and he recovered, and that's a good thing. But it's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot of money tied to him. But he's the biggest piece of the puzzle, really. I mean, you got Holland coming up. There's little pieces around that, but still, Xavier Howard's huge. But it's likely that he might have to go. So this means the Dolphins, if they ship him out, they could probably trade something, get a pick for him, but they're going to have to replace him. Byron Jones on the other side, Nick Needham, you're not going to put him in there. So there's a good chance they're going to have to invest in a corner. Now, some of these systems, like the cover two with Frazier in Tampa and Dan Quinn, you can get away with not having elite corners. They just got to play more of a zone style. So this does give some flexibility where you could let Howard go and get a guy who's less talented, but a very good zone defender. So it's not so bad at that point. But then Davis, Raekwon Davis, I thought was a good pick. He's very, very, very limited. He is a 0-1 tech player, nose tackle. So really, that's not going to fit Frazier. It's not going to fit Quinn. Well, it could fit Quinn because he does run a 3-4, but again, it would have to become a major portion of his philosophy. Or Davis is going to sit out a lot. That's a second-round pick. That's not going to be really fully utilized. In Flores' system, he was in a lot. And in Vance Joseph, you need to get some pressure from those DTs. And really, Sealer and Wilkins would be far better than Davis, so you're going to see Davis sitting out a lot. Now, so then you got Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel is a really good player in the system we had. He struggles in pass coverage. Certain zones he can cover really well, really good at pass rush, run stop. But again, you look at these systems, unless they're in that 3-4 look, he doesn't fit any linebacker spot because he can't cover. You can't have 4-2-5 with a linebacker who can't cover, or 4-3 under unless you play him at the Sam. But is he really big enough to play the Sam? That guy that comes up and he's he covers short zones, but he's really kind of like a fifth lineman. So he'll fall into either a part-time player or he'll find himself on the outs. Okay? Now you got Rowe. Rowe is a good play. He can come in, especially for Vance Joseph's 4-2-5 because you need a lot of defensive backs. So I think Rowe can kind of find his way, but he's not like a critical player. Then you got Baker. You signed a big contract to him. And what happened to him? He was moved to the edge, really did a lot of blitzing and not a lot of run stopping. And his coverage was kind of like half there because he's not really a great cover guy. He's fast, but he's not a great cover guy as far as cerebrally playing the zone. And he can't stop the run. He gets consumed. So, a 4-2-5, he's not really going to fit in there unless you got him blitzing. He could play a will pretty good, in a 4-3 under. The covered 2 Tampa zone, I don't know. Go look at the linebackers that Frazier has over in Buffalo. I don't know. So this is kind of like iffy of where Baker will fit in. Then you got Roberts, Eguavoen, Duke, Scarlett. These guys are just probably not going to find their way on a team at all. Maybe Scarlett, maybe Duke. But you're going to need substantial upgrades considering what these defenses need to be successful. Again, except if Quinn with his 3-4, if he goes heavy on his 3-4, but I don't know if that's the case. Then you got Agba. He's the only DN, true DN, that would fit a 4 look, a 4-3 look, 4-2 look, cover Tampa 2, cover 2 look. He's the only real DN we got. So we're going to have to pay and likely pay through the nose. Will he want to come back? We don't know. If not, that's going to put us in a hole. And then you'll say, well, what about Phillips? And this is my concern when I watched Phillips last year. People want to say he was having as good a year as Taylor. Yeah, in stat department, in the pass rush, I think he even had probably a better pass rush season than Taylor. But understand, Taylor was playing a D end in a 4-3 look. Down in and down out. Phillips cannot do that at this point. And maybe in the offseason he can come back. Maybe in the offseason he can bulk up. But there's a reason. He even said, I need to prove that I can be more trustworthy on early downs. He said that. Because he knows, everybody knows, the film knows, he's not capable of playing a 4-3 DN. So where do you play him? Again, the 3-4 look, he can find his way. But it does put a little bit of stress on where you put this guy unless he truly develops into a 4-3 end, which is possible. But again, it's not guaranteed. So Sealer and Wilkins, I think, would benefit the most from any of these guys because I think coming in as that typical like 3-tech, 4-3 lineman, these guys are so good. And I think they would be a great foundation going forward. So I have no worries about that. I have no worries about either the Joneses, Holland. Again, Baker is a little questionable. But there's going to be pieces you're going to have to diminish their role, and they were quality pieces you spent on. And some of them are going to be moved on. Some of them are not even going to fit. So you're going to have to invest a lot into this defense if you get any of these three coaches. Now, they could just say, all right, I'm going to come in, and I'm going to keep Boyer, and I'm going to keep the defense, the previous defense. I'm willing to totally change my philosophical concept. But then they're on the outside looking in, trying to figure out what's going on the defense. And if that's their specialty, I doubt they'll feel comfortable. And this is why I'm leaning towards an offensive coordinator being the better fit, because they can come in and say to Josh Boyer and the staff, just keep the staff, keep doing what you're doing, keep everything the same with personnel. We'll try to get some more pieces. If we got to let some go, everything kind of will stay the same. And then we have to trust that Josh Boyer is capable to run it like Flores, which I think he's pretty close. I don't think he's equal. So this is why I would say I like the offensive coordinators coming in and being the next head coach of the Dolphins more than the defensive coordinators, because it's going to be really difficult for a guy who's been doing defense one way to come in and say, I'm going to relinquish it all and change it all, and I'm not going to know really what's going on. It's a little difficult. And I think there's other reasons why I like the offensive coordinators better. But of the group, for me, I mean, I don't really like Dan Quinn that much. I mean, as a person, I'm sure he's totally fine. But Frazier and Vance Joseph, their defenses, like I like Frazier better because he's had head coach experience. He's had a lot of experience. And I like the 4-2-5 look of Vance Joseph, but I wasn't really crazy about his defense when he was here. And you can see he got blown out, in a big game. He's going to have to change his defense here. So it's a really difficult. I don't know who I'd want. Really, Frazier might not be the best because he's got the experience as a head coach. But I really wouldn't really want any of these people, any of these coaches. So, I mean, there's going to be issues coming up, and I'm going to deal with that as far as the offensive coordinators. And this is why I liked Jim Harbaugh the best. But he's not coming, ladies and gentlemen. It's not happening. So this is my take. I mean, this is just my take. I need to continue to reassess. And it's very difficult to extrapolate. A guy going from one job to another job. A guy going from a lesser job to a higher job. Look at Jimmy Johnson. He's going to the Hall of Fame, 3 Super Bowls in a row. Come over here and he struggled. I mean, so look at Ditka. I mean, so these are top-end coaches, Hall of Fame, Super Bowl winning, and they go to a whole different situation, and it just melts down. So nothing is a given. Now, it's possible that these guys can rise and stuff like that, but so much goes into determining that success. And that's what we're going to do here all off season. I guess we'll find out in like a month or so who's going to be the new head coach. So this is my take. Going to dig into the offensive coordinators next. And I'm going to do my little attachment after this for those who wanted to hear my spiel. I'm going to do a little personal story and talk about, really explain it and flesh out what I was talking about with TD Finns Talk and why I was saying what I was saying. So if you're interested, here you go. If not, this is Curtis saying thank you for staying to the end. Please like, comment, subscribe. Comments mean the most. I really want to hear your thoughts so I can refine my thoughts on this aspect because I'm really in it with you guys. I'm trying to figure it out as well. So subscribe and like, help us with Google Overlords. It's important. I want to keep this business going, so please subscribe and like. That really matters. All right, I figures I didn't want to do this thing twice, and I forgot to hit the audio button, so I got to do this whole thing again. This gig it's a little odd, guys. I mean, it really is. For me, it's extremely weird. I never wanted to do any of this stuff. I don't like taking pictures. Sitting in front, I got to stay at your face. Look at your face in these videos to watch it. You see, oh man, I look like that. I'm getting that old. I got that wrinkle. It's bizarre. And then, you got to communicate with all these people that you have different ideas you don't know about, but that's part of the gig. And then you're dealing with people in your career area that you got to associate with their ideas and who they are. Very, very bizarre. This is off the trail that I'd rather just be behind the keyboard, write my stories and my articles and just be, by myself. But I chose to do this, man, Ace per head, they believed in me. They made me an offer I can't refuse. Then my wife, she heard about the offer and then she told me to do it, so it really was an offer I can't refuse. So now I'm here. And it's an odd gig, like I said. But the key for me, the mission statement that I have is to serve the viewer. And that means, in my belief, in my framework for what I'm trying to do here, is to try to be honest, even-keeled, and to communicate. And the communication part really, really means a lot. Mentioned in the last podcast how I was one guy, and as a kid, really screwed up, didn't communicate. Somebody opposed me, I would always take it a level higher. Talk to me sideways, curse you out. You come at me, put you in the ground. Everything was war. And in war, two of the most critical things are information and initiative. And so whatever you brought, I was going to bring it higher and have the first attack. Whatever that was. And I was committed to go all the way on everything. Until Miss Capianca, sort of screwed up kid, gave him some tools, showed him love, and headed me in a different direction. So I thought I was kind of clear on the whole TD Finns Talk thing, but I probably wasn't. And my job is to communicate with you and to be clear. Some people they don't care. Some people like TD. Some people don't. Some people ask me, what are you doing? And I've talked to them many times. So I have to explain myself. And typing it, man, that's a lot of work, and it doesn't really come off right. So I'm doing this thing, take it and put it in the next one. So all the people, it's really weird. It's really weird, this whole thing, It's really weird. You got to communicate with all these people. But I like it in a sense, but it's weird. So I'm going to do this here and communicate why and all that stuff. But I'm going to start off with the story. And this was the stamp that Miss Capianca started, but that seal, that stamp, happened right here, and it's carried for the rest of my life. And I carry it very fiercely and with great fervor here. And this is the reason why. When I was in my late 20s, still wild, but growing and understanding myself first before I could understand those around me. I had a friend. He says, dude, I'm working at blah, blah, blah. I can't remember the name of the bar. It was a prestigious bar, big bar, a rich area of Long Island. It was St. Patty's Day weekend. They needed an extra bouncer. So he's like, you want to work? I said, yeah, I need the money, man. And he told me how much I was going to make that night. And I said, yeah, I really, really need the money. So show up, takes me downstairs to the owner. He got down this weird basement thing, and just 2 levels. Big place, man, real big place. So there's this Italian guy sitting at this desk. I mean, like quintessential skinny Italian guy with like the bug eyes, but like he had plugs in his hair with the comb over, and he's got the voice, you know, like Italian voice. I know I might sound Italian, but I'm not, just the New York thing or whatever. But this guy was like hardcore Italian. He's got lines of Coke. Oh, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. He's like, you're a little small, you know. Can you handle yourself? I'm like, dude, yeah, you know. I'm like, I was like only 180 at that point. You know, I got much bigger, but I'm only 5'8". So I said, yeah, I fight all the time. Don't worry about it. You know, I got it. So, all right. He's like, if it works out, you can have all 3 nights. We need somebody. Sounds good. I like it. So I left. It was me and 3 other guys. Another guy was a little shorter than me, but the guy was jacked. He wanted to fight everybody all the time. Dude, this guy was like crazy. Nice guy, super nice guy, but totally crazy. Wanted to fight everybody. There was like 2 other guys there, like the dinosaurs. One dinosaur I don't remember much about him. The other dinosaur, though, he was a nice guy, dude. Smart, but he kind of like, this was his way. He was like in his early 30s or something. So I don't think this is where he was going forever. We would talk and we hit it off. Nice guy. He says, listen, you know, every once in a while, we're going to take people into the alley out the back door. Don't come. Because we were talking before everything got hot, you know. All right. He's like, you just stay here and watch things when we take them in the back alley. One night, you know, if one guy gets taken out, 2 guys, 3 guys. 3rd time or 4th time or whatever it was, a guy gets taken out in the back. Little guy, the big little guy, comes back. He's like, oh, we stomped that guy good. He was peeing himself, you know, mess on, and all that, you know, laughing. And so this alley here, guys were getting wrecked. This is how violent it was. It was pretty wild. That night passed. I didn't get any fights. Kind of talked my way out of it. I was still more into talking than fighting, you know, unless I got really angry, but I wasn't really getting angry. I was prepared. Next night, my buddy, he's in a Celtic rock band. He couldn't show up, so it was just me. We were a little on demand. And I come there, night's going on, you know, guys getting taken out in the back. At one point, they're like, listen, you know, we're going to take some dudes out in the back, into the alley. He's like, just watch the back for us. So I put my jacket on. It was a cold night. So you couldn't see my bouncer shirt. So I go in the back, some, you know, people out there, light people out there, whatever. So I'm there, I don't know how long it passed or whatever, I'm just waiting. I'm just, you know, waiting, that's what you do. You know, you wait and watch. Something happens inside, guys start spilling out some kind of fight or something like that. It's all over the place, getting mayhem. And I'm like, you know, stop, blah, blah. I'm trying to control the situation. All of a sudden I see a flash to my left. Turn, before I can even make it, some dude pops me in the face. Boom, not like a hard shot, I mean, it was like nothing, you know? But I was caught off surprise, you know, I was caught by surprise. And the anger just flooded. Anybody who has anger issues kind of understands, like it's like a switch. And for me, when I would get angry, everything that I would see would turn black around the edges, except for like the centers. It was like this shaky white light. So I turn on the guy, and I see somebody there who's like a little smaller than me, but like the death signal's on, dude. So I just like, I don't know, it was like I was out of control. Like it's like an out-of-body experience. So I just grabbed the guy by the face. And I'm like, well, my hand is on his face like one of those suckers from the Aliens movies, you know, those little things. And I see behind him, like not too far, a couple of feet, this step down to the basement. So it was like stone steps down to the basement. I'm like, this guy's going surfing. Like, I could feel it. So I'm driving him back, and I'm cocking back, ready to send this guy, you know, right down. I'm like, I don't know how to think about consequences or anything. And as I cock back, I just hear this voice in my head, man. And you know, you can say whatever you think it is. You can say it's this, that. You can say it's Zeus. You can say whatever you want. Intuition. I know what it was, but it could be anything, whatever. It says, don't do it. And it's all happening so fast, but it happens fast and it happens slow. So I grab this guy and throw him against, instead of going down surfing, slam him against the fence and I throw him to the floor. I don't know how I had this guy by the face like that. I mean, it was just rage like you couldn't believe. And I looked down on him and like he must have saw like some maniac because I saw his eyes go wide and he just got out of there. Like, you know, I didn't continue, you know? So I walk into the back into the bar. I'm not paying attention to my job. I think there's some fights going on. I was like totally furious, like no thought. Walk in there, see the boss. The boss like, what happened? You know, he's like, yo, you got hit in the face, man. What happened? This situation going on? Da, da, da. He's like, you know, kind of berating me. He's like, maybe you need to go home. I'm like, no, I'm fine. He's like, no, it's not a big deal. I'm like, lots of fights. This guy's just like nothing, you know what I mean? So he walks off, and I'm like, oh, man, I'm losing my job. I need this money. I should have surfed this dude. At least I would have got this guy surfing, man. I would have got my revenge. I would have got my anger out. And a little while later, I'm sitting here, the little dude comes up to me, the little big guy. He's like, you did good, man. You did good. You're strong German. You're strong German. I'm like, he was a nice guy. So I see the kid talking to the owner. What's going on here, man? I'm starting to get re-aggravated. And then the kid starts walking over to me. I can feel it. It's like rising up again, But then when he gets to me, I see him. Because, it's kind of dark bar or whatever. I see this kid. He's just a kid, like a kid. He shouldn't even been in there. He was like 18 or 19. And like it drained out of me. The anger drained out of me. I'm like, oh my God, what if I did that to this kid? He's a kid. He's a little kid. So the kid comes up to me. He's like, man, I didn't know you had a jacket on. I didn't know you were bounced. I just thought you were trying to order me, so I hit you. I said, I really want to say I'm sorry. He's like, what can I do? Is your face right? I said, no, that's all right, kid. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Let's get out of here. It's all good. It's all good. So he leaves. My boss comes over to me, and I'm like, now I'm in sobriety mode. My boss comes over to me. He's like, you did good. He's like, the kid told me what happened. I understand. He's like, hey, man, your face. I thought it was going to be like black, blue, or whatever. I thought it was going to swell up. I said, dude, nah. This guy was like not a fight, obviously. I said, hey, it worked out. He said, I didn't know he was a little kid. He hit me. I turned around. He's like, I'll tell you, you know what I was going to do? I was going to take this guy and send him surfing down the back basement. I was like, oh, I'm glad for you. You didn't. Do you know who that kid is? I don't know. He's like, he's the son of some Italian dude who's like a mobster or connected or something. He's like, you'd have been in big trouble. And like it all hit me. It was like the drunk that has the huge bender and he wakes up and, his keys are up his rear end and the house has got a car in it. And he's like, oh my God, I've done too much, man. This is it. This is the last time. I'm like, if I had done this to this kid, he'd have either been dead, paralyzed, or in a hospital long term. I'd have been sued, gone to jail, and I'm in jail, which hurting some kid who was connected to the mafia. I'd have been dead meat. At best, I could have been a lot worse done to me. I'm like, man, it's all so clear. And from that point, I refused to ever be dominated by my emotions. I refused to lack violence. I refused to be who I was. I mean, there was a few little dalliances after that for a couple of years, but I have never been like that again. And that commitment, which started with Miss Capianca and was sealed on that day, is what I bring to the show. I believe the show. I believe information. I believe that relationships are all about communication. And whether you know me or I'm never going to meet you, whatever, we have a relationship. You're listening to me. You want to know, is this guy lying to me? What's this guy's deal? This is why when you look at the comment section, I really answer the disagreements the most. I spend a lot of time because that's where the magic happens. When two people come together and they're in disagreement, but they could keep it peaceful, the magic happens. Because either the one person realizes they're wrong, the other person realizes they're wrong, and one of those two people come closer to the truth, or three, there's still peace and relationship and communication and disagreement. And that to me is critical in life. And so when Flores was fired and it caught me off guard, I could feel that anger and that rage and that passion. And when Hovertrout, who spends a lot of time watching my ridiculous little videos, investing in me, he puts comments and answers and thoughtful ideas. He's invested a lot, says to me, hey, go check out, TD Finn's talk. He's not a big Finn fan, Tua fan, neither is TD. I guess he was trying to send me for that. And when I got there, I saw some stuff on Tua that I disagreed with and some other things. I just went, picked up some sound bites and said, I was already angry. I'm like, I got to make him something else. And I was ready to do a video saying, And I said to him that, and he goes, no, man, go back and listen. And it was at that point I realized that it's not just about fighting. It's about dealing with people with different ideas and listening. So I went back, I listened to most of his podcast, a little zipping through, you know. And there was a lot of disagreement there, but there was a lot of agreement, and I learned some stuff. And then when I came back in the comment section, like how odd it's like almost like that voice, you know what I'm saying? Like the universe or whatever you want to call it. He had put in there, you know, your show is good or whatever. I like your show, but you know, I'm like, oh, that's nice. I'm like, here I am ready to like go on attack mode. And this guy is saying something nice. So I emailed him and he was really nice. And he was like, oh, really spent time typing. And then he invited me on the show. So the lesson learned for me was the magic happens with communication. When you disagree with somebody, that you listen, that you communicate, that you don't get angry and you don't prejudge. Now, Tobin did that thing on Gailey, but then he came back and had an amazing, a really journalistic take on Flores. And that's the weirdness of this job, guys. We talk, and everybody's paying attention and writing it down. And I say dumb stuff. All these guys, every single one of them, Dudley Do Wrong, Big O, they all say dumb stuff. I mean, stuff that I think's dumb, and then there's stuff that I think is really dumb. And that is actually dumb, wrong. They say good things. They say funny things. But anybody, any one of you who would do this would have that same slice of good things, bad things, funny things, stupid things. It's not an easy gig in that sense. But I have decided to do this. I've decided to be a communicator. And so that's why I brought up, it could have been somebody had said go to Dudley Do Wrong. I heard some of his takes, and it was opposition. It could have been any one of these guys. But it happened to be TD, and it happened to be, he contacted me and this and that. So this is what I'm about here. I'm not about being a guru. I will be wrong. I'll have bad takes. I try to use a lot of evidence. I try to use a lot of film. I try to use a lot of information to show you that, hey, man, I want to impart to you that stuff more than my personal opinion. My personal opinion is the cherry on top. But I'm going to be wrong. And I'm going to be friendly to everybody unless you come at me with disrespect. I go on one of these shows and somebody disrespects me, then I'm going to come at him equal, not the old way, you know what I'm saying? But I'm going to stand my ground, But until that point, it's about making magic happen with communication, trying to reach the truth, and trying to have peace. So this is what it's all about here. Information, communication, respect. That's what I'm trying to do. Anyway, I wanted to let you know this because you guys invest. I mean, you watch these things, some of you, and it's a lot of time, man. It's a lot of time to invest in me and the show. I respect that. It means something to me. And this is why I answer the comments out of respect, out of gratitude, a desire for communication. So this is Curtis saying thank you for staying to the end. Please like, comment, subscribe. Comments, they do mean the most to me. Goes back to Miss Cat Bianca, communication. Subscribes and likes help us, the Google Overlords. Google Overlords are powerful. Got to pay homage to them. Keep this job going, So thank you. This is Curtis saying be well. Catch you next time and see you soon. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with AceBread.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.